Buenas tardes, Zanhafaday. Welcome to all of you who have shown up for today's public hearing on our budget process. And today we have the Office of the Attorney General. And welcome to your Guam Congress building. The Committee on Finance and Government Operations is now called to order at 0205 or 1405. First notice of this public hearing was disseminated to all senators and media outlets on June 10, 2025, with its second notice disseminated on June 13, 2025. The hearing notices were also made available on the Guam Legislature's website, our legislative calendar, and the Government of Guam's public notice portal. The committee will now hear Bill number 44-38 COR, introduced by the Committee on Rules by the request of Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam. An act making appropriations for the operations of the executive branch of government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30, 2026, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions relative to the Office of the Attorney General. Joining me for this budget hearing is Senator Talo Taitigui, who has oversight of the Office of the Attorney General, and also Senator Sean Gumatauto and Senator Sabrina Salas Montanani. Thank you, Senators, for joining us today. Before we begin, as is customary when we have our budget hearings dealing with finance, I'm going to ask all of you to please rise and be sworn in by our Sergeant at Arms, and then we'll continue the proceeding.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair, turn the rails. You may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, General Moylan, and the team from the Office of the Attorney General. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance of the Legislature in Guåhan's General Rules of Conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chairperson before speaking and shall state their full name for the record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance and the nature of the bill that's on the agenda. Personal inferences to character or motive of any senator or individual testifying are not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order removal from the hearing of any member of the Legislature in Guåhan or the public audience who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 38th Guam Legislature Standing Rules. Any violation of this general conduct will result in immediate removal from this public hearing room. So now we'll move on to recognize our Attorney General, General Moylan. So the format that I've been using, General, is allowing you to open with an opening statement, and if you want to let the members of your panel or you want to introduce them, and then just let us know whether they'll be testifying or whether they'll be in support and here for any questions that the committee may have. So with that, General Moylan, I turn over the floor to you.
Hafaday, Mr. Vice Speaker Duenas, our Oversight Chairwoman Talo Taitigui, Senators Gumatauto and Senator Montanani. My name is Douglas Moylan. I am the elected Attorney General of Guam. To my right, I have from my office, Neil Bonavita, Ray Logan, Wilfred Affligui. To my left, I have Mr. Tom Paulino, John Salas, and Mr. Joe Guthrie. They're here today to answer any questions that the senators might have in relation to the Office of the AG's fiscal year 2026 budget. So our office, this Attorney General has been in office now for about 2.5 years. The impact of our office, given that we have criminal and civil purview as the Chief Legal Officer of the people of Guam, is healthcare, public safety, and education. In the past year, there's been very serious issues, legal issues pertaining to the 3 categories that I've just spoken about. As this is a budget hearing, I guess one of the summary phrases that I can use is you're either going to pay now or pay later. With lawyers, we are important to the operation of government. I've tried to make the office important towards the quality of life for our people here. Instead of being a better quality of life, I like to say a good quality of life. And I think that lawyers throughout our nation have had an important role in not only enforcing the laws that you lawmakers make, but also in saving money for the taxpayers, for creating those priceless things that you can't pay for, public safety. And again, it goes to education and healthcare as well. Our office is made up of 8 divisions. That includes the general crimes, the government corruption divisions, which deal with the criminal statutes, as well as the solicitors, civil, child support, family, consumer protection, and then I also have the appellate and writing division, which is important for we wordsmiths in the AG's office. So having said that, Senators, we are here today in order to answer any question that you might have. We're trying to keep this as an operational budget, a bare bones budget. I can appreciate the frugality that I've always run my office in my first term as AG, as well as in this term as Attorney General. I do not believe in overspending the money that's given to us. In my first 4 years and in the last 2 years, we've had lapses for very different reasons, but mainly because I don't run an office in the red. And I try to get my staff to do the same thing. Today you're going to hear about a projection from the Child Support Office that we discussed with the Legislative Finance Committee regarding the 2/3, 1/3 split. We're hoping that you might understand the needs of the child support function that our office provides. So having said that, Senator, we are available for this oversight and this budget hearing.
Thank you, General. Will your fiscal officer be making a presentation or just taking questions at this point?
I think it might be helpful for him to at least run the numbers for us. We did put together a somewhat of a summary, the budget request that we just handed out here. We tried to condense the numbers, how much more is being requested. And again, we call it organic growth, at least I've been heard, it's called organic growth. When you have a certain size of a existing payroll, the salary increments, the bonuses, whatever is incorporated, the retirement, people that have retired, that's my understanding of the main projection has occurred because of that growth of having such a large law firm. And again, I'd like to reiterate that not only has Guam not enough lawyers right now, but we are the largest attorney law firm on Guam, providing services to the government and to our people. So maybe Mr. Paulino can do as you suggest and give a quick summary of our numbers.
Good afternoon, Senators. We are asking for 2.8 million more than our current appropriation, and this is broken into 3 main parts. Personnel, especially within our agency, accounts for 81% of the total expenditure. Of that, 813,000 is purely organic growth. That relates to increments, that it relates to the increase in retirement, medical and dental insurance. And then the remaining 500,000 is equivalent to 3 new attorneys for our office. I did want to say that since we submitted this budget in March, we have hired 8 additional attorneys at a cost of 1.2 million and 3 additional staff. So the total increase from the time we submitted to now is 1.3 million. For operations, there was an increase of 346,000. The vast majority is an increase in rent. We had moved from ITC to Bank of Hawaii, but I wanted to stress that even though we moved and there is a slight increase in rent, we actually saved 278,000, because if we had stayed at ITC, it would have been $4 a square foot versus the 3.3 that we're paying at this new location. So there was a savings involved. And we did forego 5,000 square feet by moving. That amount is offset by a 80,000 decrease in our contractual cost. And then the remaining 1.1 is really for child support. It's to support their personnel. 43% of the increase is for personnel. We have gone through an audit, so the auditors have requested that we have certain staff in place for protection of the IRS area. So this is why we have a huge increase in personnel. And then contractual is our child support system increases. So that's the difference between what we're asking for this fiscal year, or this upcoming fiscal year.
Mr. Vice Speaker, I'd also like to point out on the lease issue. I've pointed out before in the last legislature, I submitted a proposed legislation. We're literally paying enough money to buy a piece of property in Magaña. And when I was first the AG, it was the Pedro's Plaza. The market research has shown that the prices have not increased significantly in Magaña, if that's where you wanted the AG's office. We literally could buy a building in 3 years of our rent that we're paying right now. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that there's alternatives that could be done to create the equity and then take this money that we're paying for lease payments and actually buy something. Thank you.
Certainly an idea worth looking into. If there's, maybe we can work with your office at least to understand if you've identified property or if there's a proposal to put that forward in terms of legislation.
Thank you.
We can discuss that with you another time, but thank you for letting us know that we can possibly create a future savings to the people of Guam by acquiring property or building to accommodate the needs of the Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you.
So General, I just want to go through this real quick. When I look at the total general fund, 2024 levels at $16,667,000. Fortunately, and we did recognize your needs, and the legislature passed a budget with your authorized level now in 2025 at $21,246,340. A very reasonable increase. Fiscal 2026 budget, as your ASO or your financial manager has mentioned, yes, you are having a variance of about close to $2.9 million. The governor's request is at $19 million, with that variance making it $4,304,090. I want to thank you and your team for meeting us during the pre-budget hearings. What I mentioned to the team was we were going to get as close as possible to the request given the current fiscal constraints. We do recognize exactly what you presented, General, that one of the major areas, two major areas that's really throughout the government now is the retirement benefits for employees as well as the health insurance contract. And so we know that embedded in that request that you have is a significant amount to cover that organic growth as you spoke about. So certainly we're obligated to that, and then we'll pursue going forward beyond that. But so I want to thank you once again. Like I said, your team was very effective when you met with us in our pre-budget hearing, and so we'll continue to work with the committee and see what we can do going forward. I'd like to now defer to the chair so that she can ask any questions and start with her. This is a very important hearing, and we've got senators who were able to make it today, so there'll be no clock, no need for a clock on this one, given the fact that I want to give as much time as possible to those that have joined us. Senator Taitigui, Chair of the Office of Attorney General's Office, please proceed.
Sujus Masi, and good afternoon to my colleagues, and of course, good afternoon to the hardworking individuals at the Attorney General's Office. Greatly appreciate everything that you do, and it's not an easy position to be up over there. I mean, the kind of work that you do in protecting the island, it takes a lot. It takes a toll on you, I'm sure, but and I'm sure it takes a toll on your families as well. So I greatly appreciate your families giving you that support you need to come to work every day. So please extend that to them for me. You know, Mr. Attorney General, you're the most recognized individual on this island, probably the most popular of all. But I say that in a good way, because this is an Attorney General that is active in our community. You have done everything possible, and it even shows in this booklet that was passed out. And I'm saying only some of the stuff is in here that I don't think I saw that one area where you actually take the time to educate our community, especially when we as legislature pass bills, for instance, the Castle Doctrine bill. And you took the initiative to school, our community about the Castle Doctrine bill to ensure that, individuals understand the law. I didn't see it in this, but that means you must be missing some other great things that you're doing for outreach, and trying to convince the people the concerns that we have here on this island. with the drug epidemic, the importance of screening our cargo that comes in here, everything from child protective services in that perspective. So I greatly appreciate. Regarding the, I'm just curious, regarding the Castle Doctrine, where you took the initiative, you and your staff took the initiative to go out, how many communities were you able to, or areas did you go out during that Castle Doctrine outreach program?
I think it's about 6 villages. 4 villages, I was informed. We
Four
did
villages. Okay, that you're in. And so you hit the north, south, and central,
That's
and then
correct.
other one.
Dededo
Okay.
was one of our last ones. We're probably going to be up in Jigo, but it's a year-round type of function that we're doing, our outreaches, in order, as you say, to see our client, which is literally those people in our community, especially the law-abiding ones, the ones that want to follow the law.
Well, I really hope that you keep some funding in that area to continue these outreach programs, because like I said, we pass these legislation, and a lot of times people are not quite sure whether something is legal now or not legal, or what extent they, for instance, the fireworks, you know, when we had the fireworks bill that was passed, and people were not sure exactly, is it legal, is it not legal, can we bring them in, can we not bring, I mean, they know they can't bring them in, but can we still shoot them off, things like that. So please maintain that part in the community so that we understand, the people of Guam can know exactly what they can and cannot do, so that they don't get in trouble.
Thank you.
So I
Yes, we
appreciate
will.
that. And in that area, you do set aside some funding for that on the outreach, continuing to do that.
That's correct. The communication function, as you can see with the billboards, is just not the billboard, it's the message that we're trying to get to our client, which is like with our senators here, the constituency of the senators is the same client that we represent, and we have built it in. And you know, again, I've got a very creative team here, especially with Tom and our accounting people, that are able to see what we're budgeted, to be within that budget, and then to spend the money as effectively as we can. But the communication function is critical, because that creates the deterrence, that creates the positivity that we need from our community to lessen the load of our criminal, especially our criminal cases.
And I appreciate also extending that invitation to the senators, you know, to let them clearly understand, especially if legislation comes up. There should be somebody in your office that's willing to, you know, when they call, one of my colleagues call and say, look, I need some help on a particular legislation. Absolutely. You know, you've been very good with me and a couple other colleagues, but if,
the entire government, Senator, and I'd like to emphasize that with Lee Miller, who's in our attendance today, the ability to protect government employees that are sued in a official capacity, such as what happened with, I believe that was 5 police officers that are in federal district court, that we've had to step up and represent them, versus the intimidation that can occur when a private party has to go find an attorney. You know, that is not what the government of Guam stands for, and the Attorney General is the chief legal officer of the government of Guam. That is what Congress stated, and the government of Guam includes all 3 branches. So, thank you, Senator.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And it's been done, by the way, for decades in the AG's office. Even before there was an elected AG, the prior appointed AGs did provide legal representation to the entire government and its employees.
Absolutely. It plays a critical role in upholding the law and protecting public's interest. One question I have, when you express concerns about DOA's control over your office funds, there was an issue that was brought to my attention. And I'm talking on a budget perspective with regards to this, and how your office can, you know, function when you're not getting these allotments to your office. You know, you lose the opportunity of getting additional employees, as well as most especially attorneys, which you definitely lack. And according to your document here, you need 96 attorneys. You only have 40 at this point.
Yes.
So, you know, 56 attorneys needed, and nobody's going to want to work at an office not sure if they're going to get paid.
That's correct.
They have families that they have to provide for too. So can you know, like the judiciary and OPA, do you think that the Attorney General would benefit from, you know, similar allotments like they're having in order to help you?
Thank you, Senator. Senator, what happens is that when you're an elected official, you have a certain amount of time in order to fulfill the voters' will, which is putting us into office. When we talk about the governor, we talk about senators, we talk about the public auditor, let alone autonomous agencies, when they speak of what is an autonomous agency. An elected official is like an autonomous agency to the extent that they need to be able to fulfill their duty during that limited temporary employment that we all hold here. What we've seen is that, and this started not just with myself, but as far back as 2011 under General Rapadas, when Governor Calvo was the governor at the time, the legislature unanimously passed Public Law 31-153. That specifically gave a certain amount of autonomy to the AG's office, but not enough. The autonomy that you speak of that the public auditor has, I usually use the ability to take the money, put it in the account, and be able to issue checks off of that account with an accounting department. The AG's office already has that. We have the computers, we have the people, we have the staff. What we need is the legislative authority to be truly independent. And again, I referenced the public law, and that's in front of you right now. If you review the legislative intent that was incorporated into that bill that became law back in 2011, it's exactly what we're experiencing today. When you are the watchdog of the government, when you have to go out and arrest people, when you have to do what BJ does, the public auditor, by taking information and then finding out whether or not there's any wrongdoing, people don't necessarily like you, especially those people that may be in certain positions to interfere with operations. That's what Public Law 31-153 was all about. But they didn't give the full autonomy, which over the last 20 years has gotten to that point where the legislature has specifically given certain officials, let alone, again, the autonomous agency, the CCU, they don't have to ask the governor for, or one of her cabinet members who you're actively investigating to please give us some money. I feel like that, what is that, Finn, what is that thing? Please, sir, a little bit more. We're begging our own government for things that shouldn't be a question. And when you talk about the attorneys, it's hard enough to get a licensed professional to come to this U.S. territory all the way out in the Pacific, where our quality of life, and let's just face it, it's not like the States. The States has a better quality of life, unless you're in one of the blue cities right now. But I mean, you know, the States has a better quality of life. You can go to the store, you can earn your living without the trials and tribulations that we experience here on Guam. The potholes, all the things that you have to deal with living in this tropical climate, most especially not having enough resources. That's endemic in any island community. So what I've experienced is that I recruit off island, and I can't even pay the plane ticket, which is allowed for under the law, because the certain individuals in the government are not processing the payments in a timely manner. And we have the money. It's not a matter that we don't have the money. The money is in our bank account. Mm-hmm. But the bureaucracy or the interference or whatever you want to call it is occurring right now. And it required that March 12 and May 22 letter that Mr. Paulino and team put together that gave dozens of instances of slow walking the AG's office. Well, that's what you do in the art of war, right? You slow them down so that they can't be as active in the prosecutions, that they miss statute of limitations times because you don't have, and especially going back to the attorneys. When you don't have enough prosecutors, attorneys in the office, then you're not going to get the instant justice, the sufficient justice that's required of the duties in Title 5, Guam Code Annotated Chapter 30. There are so many duties required of the AG's office, and that's why we're literally looking down what is the most important functions that we need to do to serve this community, to represent our client. Mm-hmm. So not paying the reimbursements that these attorneys are entitled to, not even their salaries. I've had situations where literally an attorney came in from New York, complained that his salary wasn't paid, and within 2 weeks he was out of here. He said that this is, this is the type of unprofessionalism that we should not be experiencing at the AG's office, because that attorney was brought here in order to help us in this community. Our salaries, and thanks to the judiciary and the senators, we're competitive with the states. But the competition we're dealing with is they can match our salary and maybe beat it when they're in their same city, when they're one state away, versus relocating your entire family, packing up all your stuff or selling it off because it's too expensive to ship to Guam, and then trying to start a life here. So most of my attorneys right now are from off island. That's how good of a team that I have in our admin, that we are doing whatever we need to within the law, and I'm a strong advocate, follow the law, that we're getting past a lot of these things, but it doesn't need to be this way. And that's why I asked to please give us the same autonomy and operational independence that we see in many instances throughout our government, but especially among the elected officials.
Well, thank you so much, Attorney General, for that. I mean, it's our legal integrity, especially that's being compromised here. It's tying the hands of the Attorney General to keep our community safe is a big problem, and that's why I answered to that letter and asking DOA, but I have still yet to get a solid answer as to why, unfortunately. But moving on, I know that you brought up the high rent, your rent cost, and you already addressed that, so I'm not going to go into that. We just talked about the attorney shortage. I had a few questions here for you, and then the one thing I'm really concerned about, because we did have a meeting with OFB regarding the shortage, and I think if you can elaborate a little bit more on the child support enforcement and why we are in a situation that we may have to take steps for this certain division in your office for financial stability. So can you kind of elaborate on what is really needed here for that, especially child support?
Thank you. So, Senator, I have Raymond Alagan, who's our Division Deputy of the Child Support Enforcement Division, as well as the 4D Director. I'll ask him to address that issue. Thank you.
Alpha Day. Please state your name for the record before you begin.
My name is Raymond Alagan. I'm Deputy Attorney General for the Child Support Division. Essentially,
can you just get the mic and just write directly? You can lower it down. There you go. Perfect. Okay.
Essentially, when I first took the position as Deputy Attorney General, that was about 2 years ago. We had about 60+ employees at the Child Support Division. We're down to about 41 employees at the Child Support Division, so we are down 1/3 staff. So with regard to that, we've been trying to keep up with what the AG wants, cost effectiveness of our office. So we've been operating with shorter or smaller staff. We're trying to keep up with our caseload. Essentially, we have been doing that. We've been doing extra work. I know about a year ago, we passed legislation about escheatment. But before we even start that process of escheating money, we've been trying to locate and assess the cases to figure out where the money belongs. And since that time, it's about a year and 2 months, we've located additional families, and I think we've distributed about $1.3 million of the UDC funds that have been sitting in our account. So our office has been really, really working hard to do what the AG wants for the Child Support Division, but we are definitely lacking in staff. So yes, that's why I think $1.1 million is what we're asking for, is to hire additional staff. We've gone from 10 attorneys, we're down to 5, including myself. So I also have 2 caseloads in addition to my Deputy Director position. We have staff that are doing 2 or 3 jobs over and above what is called for in the requirements for the position they're holding. So we do have dedicated staff at the Child Support Office, but we do need additional
staff based on the OPA's requirements too.
Correct.
in their audit.
Yeah.
I understand. What was the amount in the funds that you were trying to get to its rightful owner? You know,
we have about one. I think initially when we started, there was about $6 million.
$6 million, yeah, that's right. Okay.
I'm going off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it was around 6.6 6.3 million or something
Yes.
like that, and then now you've put out 1.3 million
Correct.
right now. Okay, so there's still quite a bit left.
There's still quite a bit left.
Yeah.
Part of that money that's in our trust fund is ongoing money that's constantly coming in and going out
Right,
with current child support. But the bulk of that is money that needs to be distributed to families. So
Right.
before we escheat, we're trying to distribute that money to the rightful owners.
And there is a timeline, right, which you've considered. What is the timeline when you've done everything possible you can to find the individual, the child, or even the parent, the mother or father that is entitled to it?
I believe it's 2 years.
So after 2 years, where does that funding then go to?
Then we have to start the process of escheatment. And then we have
Okay,
to
and
publish it.
how's that, have you escheated any funding in FY24?
No, we have not escheated any money whatsoever. We're still trying
Whatsoever,
to locate. We're
okay.
assessing the cases right now, and so we are basically trying to, before it goes to the government,
Right,
we want to make sure that
Every
we've done
possibility,
all we
right.
can to distribute that money to the proper owners.
and if I'm not mistaken, this has been going on for about 2 years right now,
About
isn't
a
it?
year and 2 months.
Year and 2 months?
Yeah.
A year and 2 months. Okay, so we're still waiting that possibility. Okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for everything you do, and hopefully we can do something to help this particular division, not just to try and get the students' funds, but get it to the rightful, parent, or even to the child. Is that a possibility, right? I mean, if the parent isn't found, and that individual child is now 18 and older, can that money be given to that child?
That
or
money,
adult?
I did ask the Office of Child Support Services about a year ago, and they said they can't pay it directly to the child unless they have a court order through some
Okay.
like probate.
So it has to
yeah,
go through-
it's possible,
Okay.
but they have to go through some legal process. And if the amount is less than, I think, $20,000, they can do a small probate, like an affidavit saying that they're the sole survivor.
Oh,
and,
good, yeah.
we can
If
do
it's
it
that
way.
small. Well, I hope
Yeah.
that route happens next, to give it to that child, rather than for the government to have it, so.
That's correct.
Thank you so much for that. And last one I had was, well, it was mentioned, of course, your campaign against, methamphetamine on this island, even down to fentanyl that's coming in. I appreciate what you're doing with the opioid, and we've been seeing agencies come here saying that they received dogs from the Attorney General, and I think it was just the last one was today for DOC.
Yes.
But the one for Customs was like 9 dogs at that time.
Yes,
I asked that question too. I'm not gonna, I just, just for a hint, I asked the question if the governor's signature needed to be on that when you delivered
Absolutely
that,
not.
so it
This is
didn't.
where the government has been thrown into a tailspin right now with the decision that came out at the governor's beckoning, where the court says that the governor's signature is required on all contracts since 1985, whenever the Guam procurement law had been passed. The example you're giving is the perfect one. The canines that were authorized by the Opioid Recovery Advisory Council back in 2023, we authorized 18 canine dogs. They finally got the procurements all done. They got their, I think it was, there were several dogs, I think 9 of the 18 that we had originally authorized, there was no governor's signature on it. And that is why this is going up to the Guam Supreme Court, I think as of today. The Guam Supreme Court needs to right the ship.
Yeah.
We have a procurement system that is being interpreted because the governor wants the signature on every document, and by the way, it's a 1962 law when we didn't even have an elected governor. The Supreme Court's going to have to fix it because the Opioid Recovery Council, ORAC we called it, had authorized the money. You guys created ORAC specifically to get this money and then to dissolve after. But I mean, this is the turmoil that we're creating for ourselves as a people, whether it's the legislative, executive, or judicial branch. Yeah, there was no signature on those dogs.
Is there any additional funding in that opioid account?
We have we normally have
What is the
about
balance on that?
5 million. We're at about 3 million after the authorization for the homeless project. That
Right.
was the whole subject of the governor trying to help the
The 3
suffering.
million, right.
Yeah, that was
okay.
going on over there. So, and it's still going on. So the suffering is still going on while the government is spinning its wheels in bureaucratic, useless litigation that does nobody any good out there and only hurts us.
Is there a timeline in order to, finish that funding that's there? There's no timeline?
There's no timeline.
There's definitely the need out there, though.
Right. Well,
and that timeline is just as important, the need today that's needed.
Senator.
So, okay. Other than that, I again appreciate everything that you're doing, and to please always avail yourselves of any senator here who needs your assistance on anything, especially when legislation comes up. We look forward to your comments on legislation, especially on public hearings. It's so important, But so other than that, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Gumatato, you are recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Attorney General Moylan and your team for being here. I'll just say that in my short time since I've been a lawmaker, I absolutely appreciate the effort that your office brings to not just the policies that I brought forward in support of Guam's public safety law enforcement community, but just for the whole community, sir. And I just want to tell you, with your team here, thank you for your continued service to the people of Guam. I just had a couple of questions, if I could. I was going to ask about the undistributed child support payments, and Mr. Logan, thank you for your clarification on the status of that, how that $6 million has been or at least the effort to try to get that out to these custodial parents and the like. So thank you again for that update. If I can, I just wanted to just start on for me, and just so I can get it for the record, the OAG's budget request for employee benefits increased to $6.7 million, or $949,263 more in FY26. What specific costs, including medical and dental insurance, are attributable to the substantial increase of more than $900,000 in the OAG's budget request for employee benefits during FY26?
I'll ask Mr. Paulino to answer that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Retirement increased from 32.35% to 34.8%. That was a $333,000 increase. Our Medicare or medical costs increased about 32.8%. So that added $423,000. And then our dental, while it was a 21%, it wasn't too much because it's a standard rate, or it's $12,000 more. So that was our increase just the increases in the rates.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I was going to ask about that contribution rate. So if something does happen to happen, in terms of any chance that the contribution rates, if it increases prior to the new fiscal year, how do you guys plan to absorb that additional cost if it does happen?
I think the answer is budget amendment. Right now, we're not anticipating, right, that there was a increase in contribution rate.
Yeah, that already included the increase in contribution, and that was established by BBMR. So we're using their figures. If it does change, it usually changes in the next fiscal year based on the OPA audit.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let's talk a little bit about your leases. What information is available regarding efforts by your office to relocate all the operations from Tamuning to Magaʹhågan, and how have these efforts assisted in supporting our government lawyers and support staff with local and federal court proceedings?
Excellent. So my model has always been that the capital of the island of Guam has been in Magaʹhågan. After I left in 2006, the office was relocated to Tamuning, which is a commercial district of Guam. So, and we were, as I said before, we were in the Pedros Plaza, which had all operations of the AG's office. We were able to fit everybody there. When I became the AG, and the lease was coming up too at the time, I decided that it would be better to restore us back to Agaña and be close to both courts, the Superior Court of Guam, the Judiciary of Guam, as well as the Federal District Court. So because of the landlord issues as well as the Mawar, we finally have been able to transfer, because we put out the RFP back, or the bid back in 2023, but logistical issues had occurred. Now half of our more than half of our operations are now in Agaña in the Bank of Hawaii building. If anybody knows the Bank of Hawaii building, there's no parking. There's not really any parking on the inside, on the parking garage, and everything on the outside is being shared with everybody that's around there. So we decided that the child support operations, not only did we not have enough space there at the time for the child support operations, but especially for the customers of child support, which is the greatest number, we were going to keep the operation in Tamuning for now, because we did not want to hurt the public on being frustrated trying to see the investigators there in order to open their cases. The family division we've kept over there for now, as well as HR function. So we're in 2 offices right now, but everybody else is at the main Bank of Hawaii building, which includes especially the criminal prosecution. That is the greatest utilizer of the court system. The AG's office is the greatest utilizer of the Superior Court of Guam as a customer. Hence, the reason why Elizabeth Barrett Anderson back at the time actually had our office in the judiciary at that time. But in 2003, we moved out to the Pedros Plaza. So, Senator, the ability to house our staff, and it's not just the attorneys, it's the paralegals, the clerks, the investigators, all the support staff, and adds to this budget request, is labor intensive. You know, lawyers are lawyers. Our trade is with the individual and the training that we get. Computer office, you know, you can open up your own little law firm that way. So, but all the functions, it's not just criminal, it's civil, it's notary services, consumer protection, you name it, it's in the statutes. In addition to servicing the rest of our government, which is the Solicitor's Division, providing the procurement support, the 5150 analysis for the over 500,000 procurements to the entire government, including the autonomous agencies. Those are all the functions that we now have operating out of the new space out at the Bank of Hawaii building, we call it. We've gone this far. We're starting to get our feet firmly in the ground. We've got attorneys coming in. I think I've got 2 attorneys in the next 2 weeks that are coming in. That's the type of tempo that we're doing in the AG's office. And by the way, when we bring in an attorney, it's not just the attorney being present. There's at least a 3-month training period that they need to have in order to get acclimated to this jurisdiction, because there's a lot of different rules that they have to get used to, in addition to getting their lives transplanted and, you know, finding the place on Guam and all the logistics that are involved.
No, understood. And I know you touched on it a bit earlier, but when you're paying that kind of rent, is it possible to, will the Office of the Attorney General begin looking at a place to call its own home at this point? What do you think? That
is why in the last legislature, we literally drafted the legislation, Joe Guthrie, our whole team. It was a intact legislation, and with our oversight chairwoman's and hopefully our vice speaker's invitations, I'm going to resubmit it. I put it on my note here, so that the senators...
I think there's 4 senators that might take that bill right now. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about it, A.G. Moylan, at this time when we're trying to maximize those dollars, it would make perfect sense at this point to put money into a building that you guys can call home at least once and for all. Yes. I'm sure that everyone in Agaña appreciates the rent being paid, right. But you need to have your own home.
Thank you, and I agree 100%. That's always been, when I was growing up in the 90s and stuff, the government had the Department of Administration building, it had Department of Education building. The people owned the property, and the cost of doing business went down because you own the property. Obviously, the maintenance is an issue that everybody faces, but I mean, that's the type of thinking that you would expect from the lawyers, because financially, it's a losing proposition whenever you're renting. It's always better for the homeowner to own and to put that money into equity as opposed to putting it into rental. And I do understand it helps the economy in a certain respect because the landlords take the money and recirculates in our economy. But when you're talking about the Attorney General's office, I literally have had to lease, I think it's 2 or 3 storage spaces now because of all the things that were taken out of that ITC building. We couldn't keep it there, so we're now putting them in storage. We're looking at selling off equipment that could have been used for a larger space that we could have gotten if we owned the building or something, and then we're gonna have to rebuy it at some point if we have to move again. You know, and this is only a 5-year lease I think we are in. I think it's a 5-year lease. So we're talking about transplanting the AG's office, and it was tremendous having to have literally not only a moving company, but our staff work at least 4 days clearing that space so we wouldn't be charged for another month's rent and we could move. So these are all the logistics, but whenever you move, our ability to be fully 100% functional is decreased. So our general crimes literally had to set up tables to deal with the daily magistrates. I had to call up the GTA manager president to see if he could transfer our T1 lines on a Friday night so that Saturday we could be functional for the magistrates. You know, those are all the costs that aren't captured when we talk about renting. You know, we don't have a home. The AG's office does not have a home right now. We were kicked out 20 years ago from the Judiciary Building because they wanted their home.
Right,
and they have
exactly.
their property, right?
And they have expanded too. So I think at this point, based on the amount of money that there's an appropriation, I think that might make some sense. Thank you, AG Moylan. Let me just move on. Recognizing that Section 7 of the AG's FY25 budget provides, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Office of the Attorney General shall advise and represent the CLTC without charge in non-litigation and land registration matters during fiscal year 2025, provided that it is requested in writing with the resolution adopted by the CLTC. What information is available, Attorney General, describing the different agencies which are supported by the Office of the Attorney General in FY 2025 through an arrangement maybe similar to that of the CLTC? It could be GPD, the Post, Guam Fire. I think of it from my side. We've talked about this before, but for the record, any way we can help our agencies.
So the first question is, do you have an attorney that you can provide to that particular duty or function required by the legislature? The second issue that came up was when the governor again sued us in judiciary, the Supreme Court of Guam, and came out with a decision that says that there could be potentially a conflict. When we go in and try to protect the taxpayers, that if we're advising or filing a government corruption case for that matter, enforcing the criminal code against public officials, if the same attorney is involved in that, then you have to separate that function. The 96 that we calculated, I think half of them are to represent Chamorro Land Trust Commission, to represent every department and agency within the government of Guam as required by the code. So we've been put into a difficult situation, especially when you don't have enough lawyers. So, and you saw it with what the legal community did. They wanted more money because when you have less lawyers available, the price is going to go up, just like with meth, right? More availability, the price is going to go down. So in this case, the lawyers, there's not enough lawyers. The price has now probably matched what you would get in the States to a certain extent. I'm not talking about the corporate world. This is just the government type of pricing. But when you don't have the attorneys, you can't provide the service, number one. To try to get them over here requires the entire government working together, like making sure they get paid when they get off that plane, making sure they get the reimbursements, and then especially with you, making sure we have a budget to hire them.
Right.
By the way, the 96 attorneys that we have here, we're nowhere close to the budget required. You probably need to double that amount that we have currently because we only have 40. And right now we're only paying for 40. Actually, with the additional that we have, we could probably get up to 55, I think, maybe 50. Lawyers are expensive, just like doctors. Each lawyer, with all the benefits added, is probably at close to $200,000.
Oh no, and I'm not going to argue that because I think also policy is expensive too when we go down there and ensuring that we're always looking out for our people. But I totally appreciate your candor this afternoon. I only have a couple more questions, AG Moylan. With regard to with respect to the 6 Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission applications that were denied between January 1, 2024 and December 31, 2024, what information can be shared publicly on whether any of the applications may be eligible for judicial review pursuant to HGCA Section 161.45, and in the event any of the cases end up qualifying for some type of an award, how would this impact the Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund, which has a balance as of March 31st, 2025 of $1.2 million?
Okay, so you want to handle that?
Sorry, I don't know if we can adequately answer that because that is handled by the Commission. For the denials, it really depends on whether If the application was part of the law that allows reimbursement, if it's not part of that, then we would have to deny it, or if they're unable to provide all of the support for what they're asking for. So it'll be hard for us to look at the 6 without the details and to say whether they could be further adjudicated.
Right.
But Senator, we will work with your office. Mr. Fred Nishihira is our attorney that's assigned to the CICC, and as Tom pointed out, it's like a ORAC. It's a part of our office, but that's not my direct operations, and it would be former Judge Barrett Anderson that would probably be appropriate for that question, but I'll have it looked into with your office.
Oh, thank you so much. But, you know, we just had DOC in here, but I'll go ahead and ask this question. 8 U.S. Code Section 1227 provides the basis for which non-citizens may be deported, including conviction of 2 or more crimes involving moral turpitude, aggravated felony, failure to register as a sex offender, conviction involving a controlled substance, and conviction of a crime related to the act of or attempting to purchase, sell, offer for sale, or exchange any weapon, part, or accessory which is a firearm or destructive device. Now, you know, I think that we've had these talks and we've heard it across the community for years, while acknowledging the impact non-citizen criminals continue to have on public safety and the limited amount of resources of DOC and other law enforcement agencies. What information is available summarizing the experiences of our AG prosecutors with respect to their consideration of the views of crime victims prior to concluding a deportation plea agreement with a non-U.S. national defendant? And maybe you can also answer, do we have any immigration detainers that need to maybe be acted on at the soonest?
Very complicated issue, but to try to condense it, you've got the federal government that through their own federal statutes and the COFA, especially with the FSM, but this also applies to any non-U.S. citizen. They can issue a detainer based upon the parameters that you've indicated, and it's very fluid with them. Like how many family violence cases will get you deported, because it's not just one sometimes. You know, they have a formula that they use. Once the detainer is issued, ICE literally, if that person is free, like we're seeing in the States, can grab them, put them on a plane, and have a notice in the Immigration Service, the Homeland Security, that they can't come back into the United States, period. Not just Guam, but nowhere in the U.S. So that is what the feds do, but when we arrest them and prosecute them and then they make the federal detainer list, and then what normally happens is they send a detainer notice over to DOC, and then what traditionally is they serve their time at the Department of Corrections, and then they're released, and then ICE grabs them. What I've done in this administration is I've worked with the defense attorneys to basically offer them, if you want your guy out now, we're willing to do it. We lock the prison sentence in whatever you have remaining, and we will let them out with the judge's approval, the stipulations, and then ICE grabs them, and they literally call up ICE and say, this guy's coming out right now, just grab him. And that's how the orders are drafted. You have that category of non-ICE detainer group, like the person that just gets picked up for whatever might not be non-ICE. Those ones, we've had, I think, 1 or 2 where they say, I just want to go back home. But we make them plead to the full maximums. We make it consecutive on the sentences. So literally, and the pedophilia may not be a good one, but we've had agreements where you have 3 life sentences awaiting you if you come back into the United States. Obviously, on a pedophilia one, that would be ICE deportable. But like on the non-ICE deportable, like an assault or something, I've had the defense attorneys coming up and saying, well, he just wants to go home. Can we get an agreement with the AG's office? And what we normally do, you'll plead guilty to this, consecutive the terms, not concurrent, so they're all added up on the amount of years they're facing, and then we have them taken off of Guam, and then we have a bench warrant that's waiting for, in the system, the federal system. So any attempt to try to come back into any U.S. jurisdiction, it'll flash, we'll be notified, we take them back before the judge, and you go back into prison and serve the sentence that you agreed to. So that would be for the non-ICE detainer group. But again, the detainer group, we're just speeding it up because we're saving money, we're freeing up beds. I think it was at least $121 a day, if not $200 a day per inmate. That's how much the people of Guam pay. Now, your question on the victims, we do notify the victims, but unless there's a compelling reason, we get them out of here. Because especially when you look at a property crime, these guys historically never pay anything. You know, it's usually the CICC that ends up paying for the damages that these criminals are doing. But the safety is priceless. That ability to take someone out. And by the way, a lot of these people that are non-US citizens, they have records dating back to when they were a minor, and they're just criminals, period. And usually it's the entire family that has a criminal records. So taking one person off of Guam, you usually have a amplified effect of having less crime victims. Because these repeat offenders, they normally just go back out and commit another crime and hurt somebody else. And we're lucky if we even catch them. And that's why when you see the daily reports from GPD, we literally, in our general crimes, the magistrates get 10 police reports, especially these burglars, these people that are stealing things, because once they catch that person, they're finding out they're related to all these other police reports. And those are the ones they caught. There's probably another 10 that they haven't identified.
All right, thank you so much for that. Mr. Chair, I have only one more question, and this has to do, A.G. Moylan, with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. I know that they've asked for $822,999 for their budget for FY25. This is in Chapter 5 of the law, but also they also have sent a request as well, and somewhere around the 301,000 additional for a death investigator, clerk, and some contractual. Is there any thought that you can provide, at least in terms of in supporting the extra money to the new CME?
Absolutely. First of all, with Dr. Su having agreed to serve our community was a windfall for the people of Guam. When Dr. Nine's situation caused him to leave early, without a certified medical examiner, the forensic examiner, it's very unlikely that we'll win a lot of these cases where you are reliant upon the forensic evidence, murders especially, right? Homicides. So the commission, the postmortem commission, not only had a windfall that Dr. Su was willing to serve this community, but his budget that you just mentioned there, they are, in order to do the proper forensic investigations, he needs, especially those investigators, those death investigators that he spent a lot of time trying to, even Dr. Nine for that matter, was trying to help us with. They need the money. I think they were talking about refrigeration equipment up at the hospital. That was maybe 300,000 of the full figure that he needed. I would strongly encourage you, Senator. Dr. Su has given the figures that they already are not working with and need desperately. And you've got burnout factor going on up there with Johanna. She's doing more things than she should be asked to do in order to perform a service that the people of Guam need in order to protect our community. And then all those other services, when there's suspicious deaths that Dr. Su is asked to perform the autopsies on, you know. So I would 100% support the funding that they are requesting. And I think it just made the media recently about the refrigeration equipment.
Right, and I see that, and I think that there's need, and if it can support them, hoping that our friends at Public Health can throw down a little bit too, because I know they also rely heavily on some of those services. So with that said, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time, and thank you, Attorney General Moylan, and thank you to your team for being here today with us.
Thank you.
Senator Gumatauta. Senator Sabrina Salas-Mantanani, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple of follow-up questions to some of the questions posed by my colleagues, and I'll start with the child support enforcement. Mr. Allagan, you mentioned there's $6 million in the, or $5.3 million left in the child support trust fund. Is that correct? And a majority of that has been sitting in there for past 2 years? Decades.
Yes.
And you started off with 60 employees when you first came in, and you're now down to 41 this year. I'm just curious, how much, this 5.3, what does that break down to in terms of children, in terms of families, parents that are owed this money?
That's hard to say because some accounts. That's hard to say because some accounts are as low as like $2. Other accounts are as high as $18,000. I think we just distributed a check for $18,000 about 2 weeks ago. So it varies. I can't say how many cases it involves. What we're doing now is we're going through different types of categories, and we're trying to analyze and locate the individuals in those cases. So it's on a case-by-case basis that we have to do it. We just don't, our system doesn't identify it just like that, which cases have overages or UDC money in it.
Okay.
So we just have to go individually.
And Senator, for some background on this, I was the Attorney General in 2003. The figure was at least $6 million back then for the undistributed funds. The good thing that Ray and our team have done this term of the AG's office is we got a way to take that money and either get it to the people, the kids, or it goes to the government for the government's purposes in order to help. So the account is always increasing because when child support cases occur, they don't notify the AG's office on what happens to them. Like if they move to the States, a lot of those people, they lost touch with the AG's office, and the numbers and contact information that we had, we couldn't find them. And that's why the effort that Ray's talking about, he's bringing down significantly now after that law having been passed. And it's our team effort. You know, we could bring it down anyways, but we had a two-pronged approach. Bring it down and get rid of that money. Get it out of these dormant accounts where only the bank's earning interest on it, and get it back to the government if we can't find the parent. And we did have a part of that law that talked about the judge could order it to the child. I think that was Senator Taitigwe's.
And speaking of Senator Taitigwe, I did want to follow up on these letters that she has been writing regarding the DOA delinquency payments. How much exactly is owed here?
So as of this morning, 197,000 was owed to 53 vendors.
And how long have has your office been waiting?
How delinquent is it?
It's about 3 months in some cases, delinquent.
My next question is the Office of the Attorney General leveraging many federal grants or technical assistance programs to build capacity or improve case management systems?
Yes, we are. Again, another accomplishment of the team that you see here today was that we got e-prosecutor online. When I left the AG's office, it was Justware. That was the system. I think that I may have been one of the first ones to implement Justware 20 years ago. When I came back in, it still hadn't been upgraded. They weren't even supporting it anymore on the Justware, but they were using it for whatever it was worth. We are now e-prosecutor active. Software, our notifications on the Criminal Victims Response Unit, when there's a court hearing, the victims are electronically notified. You know, these are the things that the technology that we brought to bear on protecting our community, enforcing our laws under Neil in the General Crimes Division primarily. But grant-wise, it's a struggle right now because I've got money for like the victims, the Family Stop Violence Against Women grants, things like that. I've got DUI money, the alcohol-related DUI type crimes. I don't have lawyers. I can't take that one prosecutor and say, you're just going to handle the family violence cases under this federal grant because a judge is waiting in their court without another attorney to come and protect other types of cases. So we're struggling. We're getting there right now. You know, it's the first time I think we're even hitting 20 prosecutors. When I came into that office, there were only 8 prosecutors. When I left 20 years ago, we had 13 and we were okay. We didn't have a crime problem 20 years ago that we have now. The meth has just destroyed this community. But we are now in a position that when I bring the prosecutors, we're winning our trials. And I'll tell you this right now, we are winning our criminal trials. When the juries are presented the evidence, I've got a competent prosecutor, I've got a jury that's just waiting for the evidence, and we've got good investigators and our support team that we're winning. The jury is seeing guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That is our track record right now. And it's because of these people and all the money and support that you're giving us as a legislature that we're able to protect the community. And it's not about winning, protecting the community. When you take that criminal off the street, there's a crime victim that's not being created, and then there's the catharsis that occurs from somebody that was victimized, knowing that they're no longer among us.
This is really kind of my last question, Attorney General. While this may not directly pertain to your budget, it really is hard to ignore the frequent headlines highlighting some of the ongoing tensions between your office as well as the administration. Can you share your perspective on the current relationship with the governor and whether you see any opportunity for constructive collaboration?
The constructive collaboration opportunity occurred with the Dignity Project. The Dignity Project was not Doug Moylan's project. It was a commission, a council of, I think, 9 members that voted to take money that was given to us by private companies in order to help our opioid addicted. This should have been consistent with the chief executive's desire to help our community, because everybody agrees that those homeless encampments, not only are they sources and bastions of criminality, but there are people that need help and are suffering. So you had an opportunity. It was on the eve of implementation, and the governor, for no reason at all, attacked it viciously. And she brought her own administration down in doing it, hence that procurement law. No contract on Guam that doesn't have the governor's signature procurement is enforceable. All those certifying officers that paid on all those contracts are now in violation of the criminal law. You could be sued under the Taxpayer Government Spending Law, Title V GCA, because you paid money that didn't have the governor's signature. That is how hell-bent this governor is on destroying this community. Is there an opportunity? She can call me right now. I'll go up there, I'll talk to her about resolving these things, but I will not sell out the people on that hospital. That's the problem. The problem with the hospital, what happens if the Trump administration claws back the $104 million after GPA builds all that infrastructure out to the monolith, where there's no hospital out there? That means that all of us are going to have to pay $104 million. And I've sent it around, and I think I sent it to all the senators. Look at Massachusetts, what happened in Massachusetts. The same ARP money, they didn't even go to the lawsuit. They just says, we give up. We now owe you, federal government, $1 billion. Look at the settlement documents of how much a year their people of Massachusetts have to pay because of the misspending of the ARP money. It's blatant on how the governor did not follow the law when how she went with Gura, and there's not even a document. Lee Miller's here. I was there when they sent the FOIA Act request. Show us a document of this agreement that's in the news. Show us that you didn't violate the open government law when you conducted those meetings without notifying the public about what you were doing there. This is the type of problems we're having. And I'll just say one more thing. Look at the public auditor. I wasn't here 6 years ago. I came 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I took this office. He has been complaining about this governor for the first term of her office with audit reports that I inherited, that I had to find lawyers in order to do the government corruption investigations that ended up most recently with that civil defense. But there are dozens of other ones that are unprosecuted cases that the Attorney General is responsible for. I don't like to fight with the governor. The governor can do so much good if it's a good governor. If we have a governor that's not looking out for our people, this is what you're getting. Should I just give up? Should I just give in? You know, the last AG was accused of that, about he should have looked at something, not looked at something. That's not the type of leadership, that's not the type of election I ran to get into this office. So, and I'm not trying to put myself above anybody, but just to say, I'm here to support the leaders that our people elected. That's it. And if the leaders aren't following what I think that is supposed to be what they're doing, then I can't support that person. But I will talk towards a constructive resolution on anything that we can work out. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General, and thank you to your staff for being here today. Thank you.
Senator Montanani. Well, I think we covered most everything, but I wanted to interact with you on this, General Moylan. Congratulations on your onboarding and the opening statement of, I believe, 9 attorneys. So this budget, will it support your continuing efforts to bolster your need for attorneys?
Thank you very much, Senator. Mr. Vice Speaker.
So,
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so this
I-
budget,
it's not
will
Vice
this,
Speaker.
yeah, will this budget continue to bolster that effort to get the complement that you want to bring on of attorneys, aside from the 9 that you've been able to onboard?
It will, but what I'm most worried about is that just because we have, and because I suffered one budget year, my first term, when I had lapses, it was taken away from us. The lapses that we're showing right now, as I said, at least 200,000 an attorney. We're trying to get as high as we can. 55 is really the more realistic number I think that I can reach at some point. But again, we're only at 40. The last month has been very positive. I think we had 5 attorneys we onboarded, something like that. But to allow us the budget in order to hire these people, we're not even talking about clerks, investigators, that when you bring on an attorney, there's usually a paralegal associated clerk, let alone the office space. General crimes is packed right now with the attorneys and the staff there. So yeah, we need the cushion because we can't just hire them nilly-willy. We're recruiting them, and the recruiting takes 30 days. Our offers go out with 30 days letters. So thank you.
Yeah, so I think with the request, and like you said, with the organic growth, then that I mean, we're not going to penalize you for any lapses. As I said, we're going to get as close to that request as possible, but definitely it recognizes that regardless of whether you're tracking that, you're going to have that capability to continue that effort going forward. To me, I think that's one of the most powerful things, you know, the tool that you need really is to get into court and be able to prosecute cases, as well as be able to provide the additional services that you provide in the community in terms of being the chief legal officer. So thank you.
Thank you.
I really don't have any other questions.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
Just one thing else that is important, you know, as far as the attorneys are concerned, yes, it's definitely in need, but, you know, I want to make sure that we get the child support services, the personnel that's needed for that, and the increase that you're requesting, the $2.8 million increase from last year's budget, 1.1 of that is for child support personnel. And that's something I think, Mr. Chair, that really needs to be considered. It's a deficiency in the OPA report, you know, that it's not fully staffed. And of course, it's, you know, an area that we want to make sure we fund. So I ask that the committee consider that one very much. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure the budget analysts are aware. I think that's where when I say we'll get as close as we can, I think what we'll do is we'll see the tracking, because I just want to make sure that it's understood from your, and I know Tom knows this, that really you can use your budget. You know what I mean? And we line item authorization. Like I said, we'll get what we can get on that. The thing is when you are tracking these lapses, you can reprogram that money. So we're going to do an analysis based on that as we get as close as we can to when we're going to adopt the levels prior to going into debate. But I certainly well taken and well understood in terms of the need, and so we'll do that in the final analysis going forward. But I really encourage you to use, even now, as much as your budget as you can. You know, if you're tracking in that area, and you know, if you're gonna have a tough time, you know, with attorneys a little bit, maybe on board as much as those folks as you can by, you know, transferring over, so you can assume that going forward. General?
As we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, it becomes more viable. But I've already been informed that the child support is 356 over budget right now at the current expenses. So I'm actually looking at pulling people out of there because I will not run in the red on it. So we're trying to figure this out. But if I have a difference, and I'm sorry, Ray, if I have a difference between bringing in a prosecutor and having the money to pay that prosecutor, and then looking at child support, I need my prosecutors because there's too much crime going on out there. And the catch, release, reoffend reports, the monthly ones, we're over 200 people a month are being violated. And that's just the ones that probation office can actually identify and prosecute. Plus, it's over a dozen new crimes that those people are being tracked to be involved in every 30 days. So thank you, Senator. We will try, and as we get closer, if I still haven't hired the prosecutors, obviously, the money will be shifted because it is one lump budget. I recognize that. Thank you.
I appreciate that, General. And so, yeah, I mean, once you're on board, they're fixed costs, you know, and then when we go forward with regard to that, you know, we're going to have to take care of your need for attorneys. You need to do that. You need to do what you got to do. So it looks a little bit like a shell game, but I can tell you once you get people on board, that's an obligation of the government. So we'll work closely with you on this. Like I said, I'll work with the analysts. I know probably starting early July, we'll already be refining the budgets down to when we get closer to realizing what we're going to adopt as revenues, and we'll be in communication with you, General. So with that, I want to thank you and your team for being here today, each and every one of you for what you do, protecting the people of Guam. General, I like your statement there. Basically, one of the greatest things we give the community out of your office and the support that you provide with prosecution and law and order is for particular victims, you know, understanding that every day you take somebody off the street that's, you know, violated our people is another day that a certain segment of our community can be relieved because they were the victims of that perpetration, but also everybody else to say, you know, we're one step closer to making sure that our community is safe. And as my colleague said, we had DOC here earlier today. You're doing your job because they're full, but you know, we'll continue to work together, and hopefully someday we get to the point to where that's not the case. That with efforts that you put forward to try to heal our community,
right, the deterrence.
Yeah, we can get to where we're at a better place. But for now, we got to get the bad guys off the street. So we appreciate everything that you guys do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. So with that, this will conclude this afternoon's budget hearing on Bill 4438 COR relative to the Office of the Attorney General of Guam, OAG. The committee will continue to accept written testimony on the bill within 7 days, calendar days of today, which may be addressed to myself, Senator Christopher M. Dueñas, as chairman of the committee, and mailed to 163 West Chalan Santo Papa in Magaʹhågan, 96910. You may also send your testimonies to my email at senator.dueñas@guamlegislature.gov. This afternoon's budget hearing is now adjourned, and the time now is 15:21. We appreciate everyone for being here today. God bless you, and this hearing is adjourned.